Hey everyone, it's Andy from Chronically Healthy Life. And this is actually my first week's episode of The Fountain of Youth that I decided to put together with my dear friend Margie Schwarting, which is out sick today. And, that's the beauty of Facebook Lives. Anything that we set up live, show must go on, right? So, the purpose of this weekly Facebook Live that I set up is to help people break, almost like a mythbusters for health, right? So a lot of people are always saying, hey, there's so much information. Should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? And I figured, well, rather than you know telling them to watch which videos or who to follow, I can break down several things that I have found over the last 11 years that helps improve not only your health and wellness, of course, but also your longevity, because there's a lot of things out there that works great during the periods of time when you're younger, or depending on what shape you are, what type of conditions you may be having, because this we're all bio individuals, and when it comes down to exercise, food, recovery, everyone is slightly different. So it's so important to listen to your body and to figure out what is best moving forward for health and longevity. And I was talking to my friend Margie, and I hope she's watching this or she's able to watch this later, because she was supposed to be my co-host. And like I said, the show must go on. Um, we're talking about what topic should we be talking about to kick it off. And, she's saying, well, there's so many topics we can talk about, but one of them that we can jump into first is the importance of exercise, right? And, when we're all younger, you know how important exercise is. For those that still remember, we had gym class, and to be honest, I hated it, because I was never the jock. I was always sort of in the middle. Certain things I was good at, other things I was not. Gym class was definitely not one of my funner classes, but it was very important for exercise, right? And when we're younger, movement is so important. And nowadays, when I'm seeing it as the younger kids, they're getting a little bit more rounded. They're definitely not moving as much as they should be. That's a topic for another day. We're talking about longevity after all. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about exercise in general today. What is, I want to myth bust that you need to exercise every single day or every other day. And you need to exercise for an hour. You have to hit the weights heavy. I just wanted to myth bust a couple of these things. So a lot of you may know that I am a functional nutrition and longevity coach, but not everyone knows that I am a certified personal trainer also. And I've been doing that for years now, starting in California. I'm not really doing it now in Texas, but I kept all my California friends and clients. And, people see the way I teach personal training or how I train people is very different from how other trainers may train their clients. Other trainers are like, when you're doing an hour session, it's an hour of hard weights, cardio, it's almost like no pain, no gain. And, this is my opinion only, of course, and what I've seen in the last 11, 12 years on my journey, because that's the way I used to be in my 20s, 30s, even my early 40s. I was hitting the gym hard. I was doing the heaviest weights I can do. Everything was bragging rights, how much I can bench press, how much I can curl. And the funny thing is, unless you're competing for bodybuilding or some strength competition, that's probably the worst thing that you can do, because over exercising actually makes you age faster. Did you catch that? Too much exercise can actually make you age faster, because if you have too much cardio, just say if your cardio is too much for the day and you're hitting these hit exercises, these hour hit exercises hard, guess what? You're spiking your oxidative stress, right? And stress for your body is good in general in small amounts, but when you have chronic stress, is not a good thing. And exercising every day, hitting the hard cardio, the workout till you drop mentality is probably the worst thing for you. And guess what? It also raises your cortisol levels. And the problem with raising your cortisol levels is, well, between the oxidative stress and the raising the cortisol levels, now you're actually eating away your collagen and your muscle tissue, right? And a lot of this can show up from, just being very tired for the next day. Some people say, oh, that's all the lactic acid buildup. That's normal to hurt the next day. If you hurt the next day, that means you got a good workout. Well, that's what we all believe younger. And that's what all my personal trainers taught me when I was in my 20s and 30s. But guess what? Overworking out where your body's not repairing itself in time, you're not giving it a chance for that recovery. It is breaking you down, and you're not building muscle anymore. You're actually tearing down muscles. And that's a big problem. And of course, collagen is what gives you, the youthful look. So if you're breaking down collagen, guess what? You may have muscles, but you're going to start getting saggy skin. And as you can see in a lot of the movie stars, I'm not going to quote any of them, but, some of the ones that were in these action movies and stuff like that, they're super strong. They're still very big, but they're very wrinkly too. Their skin is sagging. And it's horrible because, once again, they're just over exercising and not having enough recovery. And we're going to talk a little bit about recovery in a little bit. But the next thing is, when you over exercise, is, like I said, you're causing too much inflammation, right? And, too much inflammation, a little bit inflammation is good, but too much inflammation is bad. It accelerates, your aging. It messes up your hormones, and it gives you that sort of tired, grumpy, bitch face. Okay. I'm just going to say it, hopefully, it's live. I guess it's not being censored. Right. And you don't want inflammation in your body, because when you have too much inflammation, they can stack on top of each other like dominoes, and then you're going to have a whole shitstorm of things happening in your body. So exercise, which is generally a good thing, can actually cause bad things also, right? And when you are overtraining, because like back in the day, I remember, oh, well, I work out 5-6 days a week, 6 days a week. Each day I'm training a different muscle group, right? You must have heard that. Oh, today's arms day, tomorrow's back day, leg day, core day, and so on and so forth. What people don't realize is your body needs time to repair and rebuild itself, right? And when we're younger, it's all fine and dandy, because we have a lot of stem cells in our bodies to actually rebuild our body after you're doing the damage to your muscles, right? Because you're always talking about these minor tears in your muscles. And, oh, wow, you need these minor tears. And then when they rebuild stronger, right? And you hear that all the time. Well, the only problem is, once you're over 30, you don't have the number of stem cells you used to have when you're in your teens and 20s. And when you're 50 and above, like us, we just turned 55. Wow, maybe we got 25% of the number of stem cells we had in our 20s. So there's no way you should be working out the same way that you worked out in your 20s, because it doesn't make sense, because you're going to do the micro tears, and guess what? They're not repairing. Next day, you're doing another muscle group. You're causing even more muscle tears in different areas. Now your body is in recovery limbo. It's trying to figure, oh, should I fix the arms first that you messed up yesterday, or am I going to fix the legs today? It's gone to this point. Now it's in this inflammation crisis. You got so many things breaking down your body. And that's the thing. You never want your body in constant inflammation, because if it's in constant inflammation, when you do have another condition that needs help, well, guess what? Your body is not going to be able to address that, right? So that's why I think a lot of people are, maybe they're getting sick all the time, because there's just so much inflammation constantly going on in their body. And of course, exercise could be one of the things driving it. So just exercising more and harder doesn't actually, fix that. And, we talked a little bit about cortisol, right? It's funny, because when cortisol raises, it's a stress hormone, because like I said, overtraining causes stress. cortisol, when it raises, can cause problems with stress. And, when cortisol is up, you can't sleep. It really jacks your hormones. So, but more importantly, it makes your body start storing fat, right? So here you are thinking that you're going to work out hard and lifting as hard as ways you can, but now you're building cortisol and you wonder, hey, my arms and legs look great. You know, there's a lot of people that are wearing, that tight t-shirt that's around the arms and then it's square, like around the belly. And I've been complaining to my wife, men, all the time. Like, we love Lululemon. And back in the day, all the men's shirts were fitted, and it fits great. You got your arms over the body. But now, it's tight around the arms, but it's all loosey-goosey around the waist area because, you got what I like to call skinny fat, right? You're fit everywhere else, but your belly, right? And Lululemon realizing that's what people's body shapes are, and they're trying to hide that, right? And, that's a problem when you're working out too much and your cortisol is up, it starts storing fat. So here you are building muscle, thinking you're losing weight, but instead you're turning around and building fat. So, which can be a really big problem. So balancing the hormones, balancing your cortisol is crucial, for not only your health, but for longevity, because you don't want your hormones jacked, because as we're getting older, you see more and more people getting HRT or hormone replacement therapy. Well, if it's jacked, that's when you start needing HRT. And if you can normally balance your hormones, guess what? That's not something you're going to need, right? And when it comes to exercising, what I recommend, I'm just going to recommend a few things that I do with my clients and that and what I think works great from my studies over the last 11, 12 years is, I think in general, maybe working out 3 days a week at most. All right. And when you are exercising, in that 1 hour, there should be only a total of about 30 minutes of exercise. Before and after, very important to do static stretching and foam rolling, to get into the muscle fascia. You want to prepare your muscles, you want to stretch it out, and I think that's where most people get hurt or pull a muscle or damage something, is because you're basically sprinting before your body is ready to do any type of work, right? It doesn't make sense. It's sort of like a car, right? It's like, back in the day, we always say, hey, warm up the car, get the oil running and everything. You never start the car and hit the accelerator and go full throttle, because guess what? The engine's not even lubricated yet, and you're going to destroy the engine over time. Human bodies are same thing, right? You need to ease into it, make sure you get your warm up. So a lot of times, when I'm working with my clients, that whole hour, about 10 minutes of stretching, foam rolling, we get about 5 minutes of warm up, and then we got 30 minutes of workout, and then a little bit of core, 5 minutes of core, and last 5-10 minutes is stretching and rolling again. And in my in my experience, I find that is not only best for your health, but your longevity, because when it comes to longevity, you want strength, but you also want mobility and flexibility, right? You want to have that functional movement. Now, coming on to the types of workout, I think it isn't that important to separate your cardio and your strength training, right? Because I see people at the gym. I don't go to the gym anymore because I think it's a waste of time, but that's my opinion. But, when I used to go to the gym, I see people on the treadmill for an hour, right? And then they're doing weights for another hour. And it's like 2 hours of time left. But, like what I'm telling you here, technically you can get a workout done in 30 minutes. Of course, you still need your stretching and stuff like that. And in the 30 minutes, what I recommend is like 1 minute of burst cardio, right? It could be, running on a treadmill, on your bike as fast as you can. I love doing body exercise like run jacks, jumping jacks, burpees, whatever works. But you want to elevate your heart rate very quickly, but only for that 1 minute, because we're building strength in your heart, right? And then generally what I do, I like tracking heart rate. Everyone knows I'm a biohacker. I get people to track that their heart rate drops back down to the fat burning zone, the 120, 130, beats per minute. And then we do a minute of strength training. right? And it's sort of like, you got a minute of cardio, a minute rest, minute of strength training, minute rest, and then so on and so forth, right? And that's whole thing in that 30 minutes. So now, if for all of you guys out there that's doing the math, that 30 minutes, you might only be doing 20 minutes of exercise. And to be honest, that's all your body needs. That's that burst of cardio to strengthen your heart. And then, the strength training, which is really important because as we're getting older, we're losing muscle. But more importantly, the strength training also builds bone health. So for a lot of women out there that is having frailty in their bones or osteoporosis, the exercise really, really helps with that, right? So that's usually what I recommend for strength training. And of course, now that I'm much older, right? It's interesting, now that I'm much older, I recommend that people do more body weight exercises, right? Because when you're doing body weight exercises, you can control how much weight you're controlling. And I love the TRX. That's the thing that I love most, right? Like suspension training, because depending on what angle you are, you can basically adjust how much body weight you're lifting, right? And if you don't have access to suspension training, 5 pounds, 8 pounds, 10 pounds, I think that's all you really need, because you want to be working through the full range of movement, and you want to have, higher reps, but less weight, right? So I would say, like I said, 2, 3 days, strength training, I'm still saying like maybe a full body, upper body, lower body, right? And I always get core in every exercise. And then like on a fourth day, what I would recommend is a restorative exercise like Pilates, yoga, and stuff like that, some stretching, some Qigong, right? All these are great because you don't want to be going hard every single day of those workouts, right? So like maybe 3 days of workout, 1 day of more stretching workout. And for those that think Pilates is easy, I tell you, Pilates is freaking hard, right? So even doing 3-4 days of Pilates, depending on your instructor, I can tell you, it can actually get much harder than strength training, but you're building a lot of strength, right? So maybe you can do 3-4 days of Pilates, like if you have access to that, I think that's a great alternative rather than, conventional strength training. So, those are the things that I recommend, because like I said, too much weight, too much cardio, you are just aging your body because your body is not repairing itself, because once again, you don't have the stem cells activities that we did when we're younger. The other thing I'll recommend is, as we get older, so important that we're getting our amino acids, especially for those that are vegetarian and vegan. Make sure you get your amino acid sources in. So important, like a couple brands that are out there are like Perfect Aminos. The ones that I use is called Super Aminos, and they're completely vegan. For those days I'm not eating meat, I take those daily to make sure I'm getting the amino acids, because of course, if you're working out, you need protein, right? And especially when you're getting older, our muscles are breaking down. You need protein to build that muscle. So you want to make sure you're getting, amino acids. And when it comes down to recovery, I think recovery is the thing that most people are missing out on, because like I said, that's why I don't want everyone working out every day and shorter workouts, because then you have longer recovery. And when it comes down to recovery, I'm very big into making sure you're staying hydrated throughout the day. I'm getting thirsty just talking about all this, but staying hydrated, electrolytes, because when we're sweating it out, we're dehydrating. So make sure you're getting electrolytes. If there's no electrolytes and you're just drinking water, you can actually dehydrate your body by drinking too much water, which doesn't even make sense, right? But yeah, the electrolytes are very important. The other thing is rest. Like I said, you need to keep that cortisol levels down, and you need to make sure you have enough rest in between workouts. And of course, if you have access to like a cold plunge or an infrared sauna, hot saunas, those are so great to not only help you sweat out the toxins, but thermal shock your body to excite your body to have faster repair, right? This is all very important. But, as a longevity coach, I think it's very important to try to support your body as best as you can. And in the last 2 years, we have found a product, right? And you can see it, I'm always sporting them, it's right here. It's called LifeWave Patch, it's the X39. And this is probably the one best thing you can do, especially when we're getting older for recovery, right? Because the X39 lowers inflammation. As soon as you're putting it down, it lowers your inflammation down like that 30-40%. So after workout is lowering inflammation right away, right? And if you're wearing throughout the day like I do, 12 hours a day, not only is it lowering inflammation, it's not even letting the inflammation get that too high when you're working out, and it also boosts your performance. So I don't get tired at all working out now since I've been using these X39 patches. And the beauty of the X39, I was mentioning earlier, as we're getting older, we don't have stem cells. It takes longer for us to recover. While X39, it boosts up GHK-Cu, which is a copper peptide, which, as I like to call a nice side effect, is it actually activates stem cell activity. It actually, what's the best way of saying it? It actually wakes up dormant stem cells, but more importantly, it helps you generate new stem cells. And that's because your GHK-Cu has been elevated. And there's a lot of studies on this, right? So once again, these don't give you stem cells, but they do help your body generate its own stem cells. And for everyone knowing about stem cells, very expensive, everyone wants them, but no one wants to pay for them. Well, guess what? This is so cost effective, and it helps you generate stem cells using your own body's light and heat to recover and repair your body. Isn't that great? So, when it comes down to exercise, like I said, exercise 20, 30 minutes max every other day. Choose your exercise carefully. Don't go too heavy on your weights. Try to find more functional movement, with functional equipment, so you have full range of movement like TRX, suspension training, stuff like that. Swimming is another good one. Pilates, like I said, is probably one of the best systems out there because you got strength training, you got core training, your cardio goes up, man. It's those balancing is freaking hard. I recently got a Pilates machine, and doing a workout on there for 20 minutes is like I'm more tired than my normal workouts using weights. So it's no joke, right? But more importantly, prioritize your rest. Get into the different therapies, whatever's going to work for you, right? Get good sleep, hydrate, and of course, find the ways that's going to help you recover. And of course, we use the X39, as you can see, right? It's right there. I got some other patches here that we're going to talk about another day. If you want to up level your training to the next level and burn fat as fuel. But hey, that's a topic for another day. We'll catch up about that next week. But anyways, Margie, I was hoping you had a lot of things to share from your perspective also, because Margie's a good friend of mine. She's a health and wellness educator. She wants to talk more about this, to share more to her friends. And I said, hey, let's do this together. I was very excited to work with her, but, life happens. She got, she had some things she had to deal with today. So I'm hoping I got you here as my co-pilot next week, Margie. Going all solo here, slightly not sure what we're talking about, but hey, like I said, that's the beauty of Facebook Lives. You just gonna get on, be genuine. For all those out there, please reach out to me. I'm sure there's some of you that think, Andy's crazy. All that stuff doesn't make sense. I lift heavy and look how strong I am. I'm huge. I was like, well, okay, well, take a look at your health markers, right? Take a look at your blood labs. Blood labs don't lie. Min and I, we turned 55 this year. Like I said, we're going to celebrate big, but due to our fur baby passing away, we didn't want to celebrate. There wasn't a whole lot to celebrate there. But I can tell you, everything that I use for myself, because everything that I tell my clients and friends to do, I'm not going to tell them unless I do it myself. On blood labs, I am 9 to 10 years younger. On MRI scans, I am 10 to 15 years younger. And on fitness exercises, Brian Johnson actually had this great fitness exercise. And for those that want to check it out, I can share the YouTube with you guys. And easily I'm 15, 20 years younger on some of the things, probably even 30 years younger, right? And of course, for those out there that know me, that train with me, there's 4 fitness tests that I do with them to check on their physical age versus the biological age, and the chronological age, not biological age, the age on your driver's license, and that is push-ups, burpees, squats, and plank. And if you guys want to figure out how to figure out what your physical age is compared to your chronological age, which is on your driver's license, reach out to me. Simple test, should be all over in about 15, 20 minutes. But you'll be able to find out if your body is actually aging faster than your driver's license. And this is a test that I do with all my clients, usually every 6 months. We're lacking a little bit. So, for all those watching this that are being trained by me, we're going to be doing those tests again soon, right? But just for example, one of them is all the tests is for a minute, and it's how many push-ups you can do for a minute, how many squats you can do for a minute, how many burpees you can do for a minute. And then the last one is how long you can hold a plank for. The main thing is for each one, after you do the exercises, you only got that 1 or 2 minute rest before you go to the next one. So it's not like doing one exercise, rest for half an hour, then do the other one, right? So this test is not only your strength, it tests your cardio ability, it tests your flexibility, your core, everything. It's a test that is, that I found through Ben Greenfield. And if you guys know who Ben Greenfield is, oh my God, that's the ultimate biohacker. But anyways, even through those tests, I'm easily 20, 30 years younger on the physical aspect. So for all you those guys out there saying, well, what Andy's saying doesn't make sense. Well, it's working for me. It's working for my friends and clients. And I know it'll work for you. So reach out to me, schedule a free 30-minute consult with me. LongevityWithAndy.com. Very easy, LongevityWithAndy.com, to find out more about tips to be healthier, to live longer, to reverse your age. If you want to learn more about the LifeWay stem cell patches, I don't know why I'm allowed to say that, LifeWay wellness patches, the X39, reach out to me, because these things are life-changing. We're seeing it make so many changes, not only for recovery and exercise, but for a whole lot of other things. So remember to catch me next week. Next week, I'm going to talk about how we can up-level our exercise while we're actually burning fat. Because remember, right now, you may be doing it all wrong and you're getting fat. I'm going to teach you how to burn fat as fuel on next week's exercise. So I hope everyone enjoyed my first Fountain of Youth with Andy, because these are just tips that I want to myth bust that everyone's doing out there. And, these are easy things that you can do, small changes to up-level your health and start reversing age. I'll see you all next week. And, I'm sure Margie's going to be with me next week, and it's going to be exciting. All right. See you all. Thank you so much for your time.